Hello. Today I want to talk to you about something that's been bothering me for really quite a while, since the 2024 elections. And I've seen some comments about it really recently. So I wanted to sort of have this discussion. And I think it's a bit of a novel concept. What I really think that Kamala Harris was the Cassandra candidate. And this 3,000-year-old Greek curse really sort of applied to her. And if you're familiar with this curse, what it was is that she could predict the future, but nobody would believe her, and Troy burned anyways. Sound familiar? So that's really kind of my premise behind it is Kamala Harris, the reasons why she didn't get elected, some things that happened to build up to this, where we are now, and what we can do, because that's really got to be the focus of the futures. What can we do? Right now, ICE is just out there violating the orders. Congressional oversight is completely blocked. There is an opportunity in the House for them to implement an amendment that would say that they could not detain citizens or deport citizens, and they turned that down. Okay, so go check these things out. Don't just listen to me because I'm a talking head, but listen. Go do your research. But that's going on. People have seen the constitutional violations. ICE has decided to ignore this concept of judicial orders, habeas corpus. But they can shoot Americans in the street, and that's okay at this point. So pretty scary world that we're living in. But let's talk about, why did Harris lose? What was the politics behind it? And I'm going to give you three different things, okay? And the first one I want to talk about was the Biden cover-up, okay? And it's kind of hard to imagine now that you can have a declining president who's acting erratically and all these things and using the auto pen, and people are like, oh, we should do something about it. That seems kind of quaint at this point, doesn't it? Yeah, if only we had a president who needed somebody to escort him around rooms and sign things for him, right? So that's what happened. There was this huge issue with Biden, though, where in 107 days, Harris admitted that she knew about the decline. There was a Wall Street Journal article that came out saying at least 50 people knew what was going on with him. And for Harris, she had two options. She could have come clean and said, hey, look, the president's in decline. They could have taken all the appropriate actions or constitutional. She would have ended up being actually the first woman president of the United States. And she most likely would not have won again. But this is what could have happened if you do a retrospective analysis. On the other hand, she went along with the cover-up. And when you cover something up, that breaks trust. And then we're going to go into this next part, and we're going to talk about COVID, okay? And I will tell you, I have my own visceral reactions to COVID. I know other people do. And I'm going to be talking to you a lot, and I'll be honest about this. I am a hardcore feminist. If you check out my site, it's called The Book Whore for a reason. And I am hardcore into bodily autonomy. And so when people are forcing a vaccine on you and they're saying, like, trust me, this is a vaccine, it's perfectly safe for a disease that we don't understand, I'm a skeptic, right? A lot of people were skeptical. What did it really mean, though? It meant for a lot of people, you couldn't have a job if you didn't get this vaccine. Prior to that, there was these mandates. People were locked down at home. People were frustrated. You couldn't go out to eat. You couldn't go shopping. So a lot of people really already felt like they were living in tyranny. That was the reality that some people were living in. Another big thing that happened during the COVID scandals on top of this was women. Women started to have this experience, and they were talking to each other and said, hey, I'm having changes on our menstrual cycles. And the government dismissed them as crazy. So two female scientists started to see this, Dr. Catherine Clancy, Dr. Catherine Lee. They gathered 140,000 reports because they worked with a lot of women, and they found that this was true. They were initially told they were spreading misinformation. Then they were finally able to get this forward. It's finally studied by NIH. So there was a lot of frustration going on, that people were being told stuff wasn't real. There were lies going on out there. And let's face it, we all had to take vaccines. And I don't want to say we had to. You could have gone without a job, right? Not like we were starving, we were hungry, we needed our jobs. And so people did what they had to do. So then you have this next thing that's super, super interesting. What did Harris run on a platform? Harris didn't have a vision of hope and change. Harris had a vision of not being Trump, right? And so at the time when she started saying this, like, you need to do these things. If you look at immigration and what's going to happen when Trump comes on board, people are like, how is this any different than what's going on right now? We're already under authoritarian regime. We already can't go outside of our houses. So this was really a very kind of sad state where these three things came against Harris. So what ended up happening in the elections, the votes, when people claim it was a landslide election, it was not. It came down to basically 230,000 votes across 3 different states. That's a super, super tiny margin. And that's what Harris actually lost by. So when people are like, this was a landslide, it's not true. You want to know the largest voting bloc? Americans who stayed home. And I will say, as an independent, I don't care who you vote for most of the time, but you need to go and vote or do your right and vote, whatever you need to do. But voting is such an important right to us as an American. It should be a sacred right, and it needs to be done. And so shame on everyone else. Trump won by 31%. Harris won by 30%. And the real winner? Apathy. Apathy is what won. There's a slight margin of 1% for the other 3 candidates, and I'm sure everybody can guess where my vote was. But I will say I wasn't in a place where it mattered. Harris's time for the candidate, in my opinion, at this point, is over. Let's look at where we are. We saw this devastation going on between the 2 conflicts, and I think what people recognize now is that yes, there was a lot of perception under COVID that we were losing rights, but there's a lot of reality under Trump that fundamentally the world has changed for the United States of America. We are fighting with our allies. We are fighting against the world. Prices have not dropped significantly. In some cases, they have actually risen because of the tariff policies. We are seeing Americans shot in the street. We are seeing Americans detained. We are seeing Native Americans detained. We are seeing children in camps with measles. This is America today, and we are seeing complete lawlessness. We are seeing ICE thugs out there. By the way, if you follow me, I also post every single day a different ICE thug that has a history of SA, because we have so many of those, at least 30 so far. So if you think that we're being protected against immigrants who are harming women and you want to bring up Lake and Riley, I can bring up a counter ICE agent for every single day of the month, and they keep turning up. So I promise that I will be having more. And I think a really significant thing on this slide I really, really want to highlight is we've had a president, people can say it's a joke, who's literally declared war on American cities. And maybe back when you saw this in September, October timeframe, you thought, oh, it was a joke. I will tell you, when Miriam Martinez was shot 5 times by an ICE agent who bragged about it in Chicago, that wasn't a joke. So let's talk about what else is going on. Complete lawlessness, not listening to the judiciary whatsoever. And what do we need? We need Harris to do the right thing and to bring the party together. And when I say that, I'm saying this as an independent. I have never voted for a major party candidate in my life, but now more than ever, we need the Democrats to get their stuff together, because we need a party that's a counterparty to authoritarianism. And yes, Kamala, it is terrible that you were in the situation to be the Cassandra candidate, but I am begging for you and the Democratic Party to give us hope. We've seen just a little bit more hope the other day in Texas when a Democratic candidate was aligned. And I will tell you, as an independent, I'm talking to all my friends and I'm telling them, for the next election, there's 2 choices: tyranny and freedom. That's it. That's the only 2 choices. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for subscribing. If you would like to see the full article, it will be posted below. And give me your other ideas of stuff that you'd like to talk about. I appreciate your time, and it is always valuable. Have a wonderful night.